Another route that I traveled to come to the same conclusion, i.e. mind maps, was studying different subjects and different geniuses. And I studied neurophysiology, for example, and found that the brain cell looked like a mind map, which was wonderful anyway. But it also worked on the same principles. It worked on linking and associations and transferring and storing images. So neurophysiology tended to confirm that the way that the brain cell and its friends, the other brain cells, would want to note would be in mind map form. The geniuses I mentioned, all the geniuses tended to use the image and some form of association. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, image, 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 and little connections and association. Not yet formalized, not theoretically applied, but the fundamental principles were actually there. I then looked at other people's notes and observed, noted, that the more linear notes they made, the more they didn't like their notes, and the more badly they tended to do, and the more desperate they became around exam times. I observed that the better students, those with better results, tended to have messy notes. And I thought, something's wrong here. If the better students have messy notes, then messy notes must be better. And their messy notes included doodles, little images, again, connections, key ideas, little symbols. And they were, again, not in a structured form, but the elements were fundamentally there. I examined my own process. What did I remember? And I certainly didn't remember sentences, which is how I was making my notes. And I tried to, testing myself, I tried to remember, and I ask you to do the same, I tried to remember 10 sentences of 10 words or more that I had either spoken or written or heard during the last 5 years. And apart from things that I had to remember for study, I couldn't. But I could remember days and weeks and months and years of events. How did I remember them? I remembered them only with images and associations and the senses, the multi-sensory recall of those times. But sentences, no. So I began to realize that in my own notes, I was using a system which was called good, called neat, looked good, looked logical, looked all the things it should look, and it was totally, absolutely wrong for my brain, for my memory, for my creativity. And I studied wherever I could, whatever subjects I could investigate, I began to study. I studied the great poets, especially obviously Shakespeare, and what was his work filled with that made it so memorable, so attractive, so brilliant, so great, so universal. Imagery, associations. Wherever I looked, it was imagination and association. I studied psycholinguistics and discovered semantics and general semantics. What was the principle of that? That every word had its own range of associations, and that in order to communicate and understand, you had to know that fact and be able to understand that people would have different connections around different nodes, around those different supernovas. So everywhere I looked, in every discipline, every path led to imagination, association, the mind map. And the mind map and imagination and association are the human language. They are the language you and I speak. You and I will never meet a foreigner. You'll meet someone who speaks a kind of subroutine different language, called English, called Chinese, called German, called Australian Aboriginal. But you won't meet someone who speaks fundamentally a different language. We all speak the same language. It is the human language. It is imagination and association and the location of those images and associations. And externalized, that language is the mind map. The mind map is the brain's fundamental mega language.